your servers in this time. So if you've got people that are coming to bring you dinner or your staff dinner or whatever during this, please take care of them as well. But enough of me. Let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? Our first presenter comes from the University of Buffalo. He is the head strength and conditioning coach for football, Matt Gildersleeve. Matt runs the entire performance department out there. He oversees the football's physical preparation, nutrition, and he cares for the fueling station. This was his first season, and the Bulls won 8 games, including their bowl game, beating Charlotte 31-9. And prior to that, Coach Gildersleeve was at Akron for 7 years, and he went all the way from being a GA to the director there. So, Coach Gildersleeve, so excited to hear you talk, man. Can't wait for this. Thank you.
Appreciate the introduction there, Jay. Thank you very much. All right, so as we kind of get into this, make this a smooth transition as possible. Drake, Ben, just let me know. I got to share my screen here. If you can unblock that. All right. All right, that should be up there. Now, no one can see me talking right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can see you talking, Matt.
Okay. All right, beautiful. Okay, well, guys, what I'm going to talk about today is as we get into this, and I want to pre-apologize because I got a newborn baby in the house. So at some point during this presentation, there's a really good chance you guys are going to hear some crying or my wife telling me to stop talking so loud, which is just normalcy right now in the Gildersleeve household. So if that comes up, I do apologize for that. But I'm going to talk about something that's something I really enjoy speaking on, guys, but I'm going to break down acceleration, deceleration, and change of direction, more specifically the biomechanics of those and how they apply to sports in general. And I'll keep it as general as I can, guys. But before I get there, you know, the first thing that I really want to do is just re-hit that point of, you know, guys, when I sent this tweet out 10 days ago, or maybe it's 11 days ago now, I would have never in a million years guessed that we would have fundraised $45,000, put this speaker lineup together and had all this amount of help. And I just want to truly, truly thank everybody. I think this is the most impressive thing I've ever seen our community do together as far as the strength and conditioning community and industry to be able to fundraise and help. And for those of you that aren't exactly, you know, don't know exactly what specific platform we're donating to, all this money goes to the people that Jay was talking about. So the hourly employees that were laid off, the people that are really hurting through this, the gym owners that can't go in and do what they want to do and earn the salary they want to earn, that's where this money is going to. So before I start today, I would just like to set a goal. I'd like to raise $1,000 by the end of this particular talk. So if you can, you know, Drake, there should be a link out there that if you guys either have it or we can put it in the chat box that you guys can click on. And if it's a penny, if it's $1, if it's $5, whatever you can give, guys, we'd really like you to do that. And as Jay said, let's keep the important thing, okay? All right.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt, but I did put that link for the GoFundMe in the chat here for people to go look at.
Awesome. Okay, great. So there you guys go. It's in there if you guys can open it and click on it, okay? So guys, to get started and to get rolling here, like I said, what we're going to talk about today is I'm really going to get into what I consider the laws of change of direction as far as accelerating, decelerating, and changing direction goes, and the mechanics of those movements, okay? We're going to talk about angles. We're going to talk about force projection, force production, and force absorption, and why those things are so essentially important to movement and to accelerating and decelerating. Okay, and then I'm gonna, you know, when you guys leave here, I want you to be able to take some things that you can take home and apply immediately. So I'm gonna break down our entire program to you guys and give you guys live drills and show you exactly how we do things and give you a pretty dang good idea of what we do at the University of Buffalo to train these things. Okay, so for those who you're familiar with Altus and Stu McMillan, you know, this is one of my favorite quotes, and I'll just to summarize at least how I perceive this is obviously in field sports, movement is not necessarily always relatable to track. And I think obviously a lot of things that we do with our athletes as we train them is, you know, in our sprint mechanics and those kind of things. Obviously, the majority of that comes from track. And I think there's a lot of naysayers out there that dismiss teaching mechanics because of our sport. And the whole point of this tweet and why I have this up here is it talks about the rules, or what I consider the laws. There are laws to running. There are laws to changing direction. There's physics and things that go into that can't be necessarily unbroken. They're foundational. Okay, we need to teach our athletes those laws and let them learn how to use them within their sport, whatever sport that may be. So we start with the bare bones of that, of addressing those laws with our athletes. Okay. Now some of you guys, you know, with the bandwidth and how many people are on this right now, I'm not sure how these videos are going to go. I will do my best to be a sideline announcer here if these can't, but this is a video of our running back, JARET Patterson. JARET's a sophomore. This was his second season in college football. Rushed for 1,800 yards, 961 of them, which were after contact. 5th most in the nation, guys. This is the best change of direction, decelerator, accelerator I've ever had the privilege of coaching. Okay. And, you know, a lot of these laws, as I start to play this and you guys watch JARET, okay, you know, when I really started dissecting movement and assessing biomechanics, I think one of the hardest things for me as I started as a strength coach was programming agility. Cone drills never made sense to me. I sat there and I watched and I just thought about our sport and I couldn't think about or make sense of how it made sense to put a cone and tell a kid to run to that cone and then run to here. And then there's no reaction, there's no, and how you could isolate the laws of movement. And so I started studying film. I started studying guys like Barry Sanders and Eddie George and Ray Lewis and guys that I thought were very efficient movers. And I kind of started figuring things out, right? Things I figured out is that upon change of direction, center of mass always did one thing. It always dropped. Right, a guy was changing direction. His center of mass, if he was a proficient mover, his center of mass dropped. Okay, I always started looking at their shin angles. When you looked at really good, efficient movers, their shins were constantly moving in the direction they wanted to go. They were projecting force in the right direction. JARET isn't one of the best at that. I'll dive more into those details as we get going. Okay, so we talk about accelerating, decelerating, and changing direction. Those are the main movement biomotor abilities used in the sport of football, and obviously in the majority of on-field sports. Okay, and they're used in a multitude of planes. We have linear, forward and backwards. We have lateral, side to side. We have diagonal. We have all these different angles and these different planes that we operate in. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that you need to deliberately practice every potential step that an athlete may or may not take in the game of football or volleyball or soccer, whatever it is you coach. What I am going to tell you is that I absolutely think it is essential that they learn the laws in all those planes and then allow them to figure it out. Teach them the laws so that they can project force in the right direction, absorb it, they can accelerate, they can decelerate, and then let them figure it out, okay? So one of the big things we'll talk about throughout this presentation is by having proper biomechanical production of force, projection of force, and absorption of force, you're going to make your athletes as explosive and efficient as they can possibly be. Okay. And not to mention the other thing, which I won't dive too much into today, but also how much that can help decrease the risk of injury. Okay. So a lot of these drills are very simplistic that we'll go through. All right. And what I've heard a lot of coaches that I've talked about this, or like I said, some people on the opposition is, you know, you spend too much time teaching these angles or these fundamentals or these laws. We don't need those at the big time or at the bigger schools. Our athletes just get it. Well, I would completely disagree. The more explosive athletes you have, the more force is being developed, the more force is being produced. If that force isn't able to be absorbed, that's when we have all the non-contact injuries and issues that we run into in sports. And to me, the more explosive and powerful an athlete is, the better their biomechanics better be from a standpoint of actually being able to utilize that force and being able to absorb it. So for those of you that have seen this picture before, this is RG3, right? Robert Griffin. And this is his broad jump from the NFL Combine. This was a record jump, right? So the amount of force being produced is ridiculous here, right? Absolute great force production. But look how he absorbs the force. That becomes the issue. Watch it, you have the valgus knee bend. That's his modality of absorbing force, okay? Obviously, as we know, RG3 has been riddled with knee injuries throughout his NFL career and really has sidelined it completely. Okay, just a small viewpoint on that, okay? So this is really the big thing that I want to hit, okay? understanding that force production is great. And we spend so much time working on force projection, whether it be in the weight room, on the field. We always talk about force production. Okay. We want to become better force producers, produce more force, more and more and more. Okay. And when the thing I want you to understand, if that force is not able to be produced in the correct direction, it is absolutely worthless, right? If while JARET is changing direction, if he can't produce all the force that he can produce here, if he can't produce it in the right direction, what good is that force? What good is that heavy back squat? What good is all that explosive power that we possess? And my answer is it's not good. Okay. So in this projection, it's why angles are so essential in accelerating and decelerating and changing direction. Okay. I want you to just look at this quick snapshot, right? Look where JARET's shins are pointing. Both of JARET's shins are going in the correct direction. Look how low his center of mass is. Okay. Look at the defensive back. Shins are still vertical. Center of mass is high. Do you think he makes this tackle? And I'll give it to you right now. Let me make you guess. No, he doesn't. Okay. JARET's long gone. And the reason is because once again, he is abiding by the laws of changing direction, of accelerating, decelerating. Okay. So I'm going to try to break this down as simply as I can into some linear mechanics, into some lateral mechanics, accelerative, decelerative, and change of direction. So these are our linear acceleration mechanic drills. Okay. So the first thing we have is the linear power line, which, probably I would imagine 95% of the people listening have heard of, have seen, have done. Okay. A very simplistic drill, but our philosophy is that we want to go from the most stable to the most unstable. And there's not much more stable than a wall in front of you with your hands on it and a floor that's not going anywhere. Okay. So as we teach this, as we introduce this to our guys that are just getting on campus, the first thing we're always going to talk about is the shin angle. Okay. Understand this. If you take one thing from this presentation, please take this. Your shins are your steering wheel. Your body is going to go where your shins point. Just like when you drive a car, if you turn the wheel left, the car is going left. Okay. This is exact same thing as with shin angles. If your shins are pointed left, that's the direction you're going. They are your steering wheel. That's the best thing to isolate and look at as far as changing direction, to see if you have a proficient guy or athlete of changing direction or you don't. Okay. Shins are absolutely essential. They're your steering wheel. Okay. 45-degree angle. That's this projection angle we constantly talk about, right? Is 45 degrees, right? I want to hit you guys with this too, is it depends. And I'll get into this a lot too, is we constantly talk about 45, 45, 45, 45. Well, guys, there's a lot of variability to that. Okay. Maybe it's 35. There are some very elite sprinters out there that can pull that off. Okay. But most likely it's probably closer to, like, say, 65. Okay. And that depends on a lot of things. Mobility, strength. Do you have strength? Can you possess those angles? If you can't possess those angles, you don't have a chance. If you come out too low and you project at too low of an angle, all that's going to happen is you're going to see that side-to-side motion or that stumble out of the block. That's how you know an athlete is coming out too low. Okay, he's trying to lean, and I'll hit that here in a minute as well. So 45 degrees, yeah, it's optimal. Is it necessarily realistic for all of your athletes? Probably not. Okay, so maybe that's something to reevaluate as well. Obviously, in this linear power line, we're talking about more horizontal force. So we are talking about projecting back and down. Right? We want to project force back and down this way, right? And then we talk about, from there, we talk about dorsiflexion, okay? As you go through and understand, and this is, once again, a whole nother topic, but guys, there's 26 bones in the ankle and the foot right here, 33 ligaments, 107 ligaments, 33 joints, right? So that's pretty important. We can dissipate and or project a lot of force from that, produce a lot of force from that. So rigid ankles, rigid feet, we work on that all the time, but we always want to be dorsiflex for this bottom foot. Okay. We talk about neutralize, we talk about really good posture here. And then we talk about a low heel recovery. Okay. If this knee and this shin, and we talk about projecting force, if I overdrive this knee and this knee is up here and I bring this thigh way up top here, what is my shin angle going to be? It's going to look more like this, right? So when I go to strike the ground, which way am I striking? I'm striking down. How am I going to strike back? If I want to go this way, can't do it if I'm pushing down this way. Okay. So we talk about just projecting force. That's why this is kind of our key piece there. All right. So I just hit this, but when you please, again, this is Dr. Ken Clark. If you guys don't follow this guy on Twitter, please do. Okay. He's a guy that puts out a lot of really good things, a lot of really good studies to mass model. Those kind of things are very worthwhile looking at. Okay. But when you coach an athlete to lean or to run low, this is what's going to happen. Center of mass is going to shoot this way. Okay. And these steps are going to go side to side, and he's going to start stumbling, right? Instead, what we want to do is we want to coach our athletes to project. Okay? You will never hear us at Buffalo say, lean, run low. Not going to happen. We're going to coach athletes to project, back and down, put pressure in the ground, back and down. Okay? Those are our coaching cues. And typically when you do that, you get these nice, pretty starts that we want, right? Full extension all the way from the ankle up through the top of the head there. And we don't get a lot of this curve, stumble, bumble. We can avoid that simply by just using a different cue. Okay. So as we go through this, once again, people think a lot of this stuff is elementary, and I get that. That's fine. Okay, different things work for different people. But I'm telling you this right now: sexy isn't always better, right? We spend time teaching our athletes how to project in the right direction, and that way, when we do develop force and we get all those things, it's nonstop as far as results that we get from it, because we have good ingrainment of those movement patterns. Okay, so the first thing, our first easy typical progression that we'll do, okay, is as stable as you can possibly imagine. 2 feet in the ground, 2 hands on the wall ain't going anywhere. This is about as stable as you can get. We're just trying to teach them how to understand that force, right? And when you do this correctly and you get into a good extended position here, you'll understand and you'll feel that force immediately, where here, I feel like I'm resting against the wall. Here, I feel like I'm about to push the wall over. And that's something that they can start to feel. It creates awareness. I think you can coach an athlete as much as you want to coach them, but until they truly can feel and you create that self-awareness of what they're doing incorrectly, they won't fix it. Okay. So we'll shift there. Now we'll make it a little bit more unstable. Now we're going into into a single leg. Okay. So I'm bringing this leg up, make it a little bit more unstable, and we're just ISO holding that position, teaching what we want this shin angle to be, teaching the rigidity of this ankle foot calf soleus complex here, teaching posture, making sure hips are through, working through all those things. Okay. We go to the single leg switch next. So a little more unstable. Switching 1 at a time, right? You make it a little more unstable by going 2 at a time. Okay. So now it's 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So we're getting a little more unstable now. Obviously, the environment is becoming harder to maintain that posture. And anyone who's ever coached these before knows that as you go down from singles to doubles to triples, guys' posture start curvature. You get that curve in the thoracic spine. You start getting force projecting in the wrong direction. Okay, and then the last step of our progression on the wall is just rapid fire. Okay, now you have to be able to maintain that posture while constantly driving force back and down, back and down, back and down. Okay, so how I like to think about this, guys, is we do this strategically. We go from the wall to a prowler. Why? Because to us, we coach it, hey, this prowler is the wall, it just moves now. Okay, so nothing changes. The biggest thing I see is when people go to a prowler march, all of a sudden my posture is gone, okay? My projection is gone, and I start taking these short little choppy steps. Guys, nothing changes when we go from wall to prowler, except for this. You see these arms right here. That is the only thing we will change. We will teach them to load and set their scaps. And just so we can get a better shape, I like this shape better. Long arms, I think it just from the lever disadvantage, it's very hard to maintain this angle. Okay, nothing changes with this technique. It's the exact same. We're still punching back and down, back and down, back and down. Okay, so as we progress this, we'll start off with a true march. Then we'll shift into a bound where we're really working a powerful extension step, and then into a quote unquote sprint. But more or less, it's always staying accelerative. So those legs are long. We're never getting in that piston-like or we're never getting that cyclical-like action. It's staying piston type. We're pushing back. We're constantly driving back and down, back and down, back and down, trying to get them as used as we can to, now, like I said, that wall is moving, push the wall. Okay, and from there, we'll progress to sleds. So now we have to use the arms. We're utilizing arms. So we'll go sled march. We'll bring it back down. And guys, the biggest thing that a sled does, and this is what at least as far as heavy sleds, when we load sleds, it allows me to replicate the acceleration phase over and over and over again. Whereas if I were doing a full out sprint, I might get 3 to 4 probably 3 true accelerative steps before I start working in that upright and start working into that phase of sprinting. With a heavy sled sprint, I can go 20 straight yards of just practicing and neurologically ingraining those accelerative steps, those big, long, powerful piston-like steps. And that's, to me, the biggest benefit of this is we can isolate that phase of running. Okay, so we start off with the march, we shift to sled bounds, and then we work into sled sprints. Now we work 60 to 80% of body weight. And if I didn't hit the weight on these, it's about the same, guys. So we're going to weight these, but we're looking for shapes on the prowlers. If a guy can't get in a good shape, we lighten the weight. If he needs more load to get into that good shape, we put weight on. I'd say prowlers are less a calculation and more an eye. You have to watch, you have to look at the athlete doing the drill, but you're looking for a shape. You're looking for that same shape we had on the wall, minus the arms, okay? But this is the shape that I'm looking for. And if they can't keep that shape each step, you need to lighten the weight. But typically for our big boys, you know, we have prowlers, and we'll put, you know, two and a half plates on each arm there, right? The skills will typically have 2 plates on each arm. So once again, that's more so, but this guy's pretty much 60, 80 is all the time. Now, if you get too light on these sled sprints, obviously as momentum rises, so will the athlete as they create momentum. So if the weight is too light, they'll end up getting upright, which is what we don't want. We don't want to be sprinting upright with a 50% body weight load attached behind us. Okay. So the biggest thing is when you see that upright running, if it is a guy who really understands the drill, you just add weight and it'll bring him right back down. Right. Now, the other thing you have to watch out for here is your projection angle. So especially on the prowler, what you'll see is guys will get way too low, and they'll, let's say, come out at a 30 to 35 degree projection angle, a 40 degree projection angle. And you have to know your athletes to know, okay, you're practicing a projection angle that is not realistic to you. You're not, when we go to sprinting, you're not going to be able to replicate that projection angle. So make sure as you're going through, whether it be these prowlers or these sleds, you get your athletes in a realistic projection angle that when you transfer to sprinting, it's going to transfer, or else they're just going to lean and fall right on their face, which is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here. Okay. And the last thing we have is the med ball. So this is just getting it very dynamic. We take the landing out. So now we're just working on different variations of letting them practice how to project. So understand what a dynamic projection feels like. Get those angles. Those are your steering wheel. Project with full extension. Slam the ball as hard as you can into that wall. Don't worry about the second step. Okay, now this is the same thing I'll tell you guys is you have to watch projection angles. All 3 of these guys I was sitting there screaming at because they're projecting too low. If they came out that low in a sprint, they would fall right on their face, which is what they're doing. So you certainly have to coach this. As you're going through this, you can't just sit there and let them throw the ball and let them land on their bellies. You got to coach the heck out of them and make sure that as they're projecting, they have realistic projection angles that are going to transfer to their sport. Okay, so just to go back through and see that progression all together, right? We have the wall progression, the wall now moves, we go to the prowler progression. Then we get the arm action going, now we're working sled progression, dynamic nature of med ball progression, and sprinting. Now understand this, it doesn't mean we're not sprinting this entire time, right? If we need to work on projection angles, okay, we're just gonna work on that for the wall progression until we got it, but we're still gonna sprint with it. We're always gonna sprint, okay? The prowler progression doesn't mean we're not sprinting, we're sprinting with it. The whole time, guys, it's just what I would say is by the time you master these 4 things, if you really have proficient athletes, they are neurologically ingrained and they are ready to sprint and they are ready to project in that angle. And that's the biggest thing that I can tell you guys. But you got to keep sprinting. You can't just say, oh, until we master the wall progression, we're not going to run. Can't do it. Okay, can't do it. But while you're, for us, we have a projection drill every time we sprint. Whether that be on max velocity days, more of a vertical projection, or whether it be on horizontal vector days where it's more of an accelerative projection, we have a projection drill, and this is just how we progress those drills. Okay, so getting into change direction now. All right, we break this into 3 different phases. Okay, phase 1 is change of direction fundamentals, or what we talk about the laws. Okay, this is always going to typically happen in our first phase of the year, which is our neurological ingrainment phase. We're trying to ingrain great motor patterns, so we're trying to ingrain the laws of change of direction. Take those laws, teach them those laws, ingrain those laws. Step 1. Step 2, now we're going to teach them and put them into games, into competitive mode. It's not quite football yet, but it's competitive drills where I am reacting off another human being. And then we're going to sit there and we're going to assess. Do you still possess those laws? Or as soon as we get you into a competitive mode, do those laws just run out the door? Okay. And if so, then what does that tell us? Well, we need to go back to phase 1. We need to hit those laws again. Okay. Or if we get to phase 2 and we sit there and we go, man, shin angles are great, center of mass is great, we're changing direction very efficiently, fantastic. Then guess what? We're ready for phase number 3 is football. Okay. And I'm just going to say this to you guys. This was the problem as I came to this conclusion, right? It was I sat there and I thought about making cone drills, agility drills. And what did I do? Man, I got to make these specific to football. I got to make these specific to my sport. What is more specific to your sport than going out and playing football? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Okay. All you do when you create cone drills is you try to mimic and isolate pieces of those drills. Okay. Here, we're isolating the laws. We're opening it up a little bit to reactivity. We're giving them a controlled space, a controlled environment, right? And then we're cutting them loose and letting them play football. So our phase 3 is just that, right? And so that's what we're assessing every time. Teach them the laws. Can they maintain the laws while in this phase 2 of a closed kind of box change of direction? And then when we go to cut it loose, can they still maintain those now in the game of football? And when you do this, when you get to phase 3 and they can do that and they can abide by those laws, you start seeing guys become much, much better football players, and you see them be able to produce the force that you gave them in the weight room, that they earned in the weight room. You really see them be able to transfer that from there to the field. Okay, so here's phase 1, acceleration, deceleration, change of direction. Some of these videos might take a minute to load, so hang in there, okay? So this is just a single leg triple stick, right? So we're just working 1 yard into a stick. Center mass has got to drop. I have to take a big momentum step forward. All of these are compact. So these are just, this is fundamental. This is phase 1, right? So center mass has got to drop. Okay, now we're going 5 yards, making it a little bit more unstable, right? As we do these linear mechanics, you have got to coach a big step, just like you would on a broad jump. Okay, watch this step in front of you. Big step, momentum sinks into the stick. Momentum sinks into the stick. Okay, that is absolutely essential, guys. If you stick your foot underneath your center of mass while you're trying to change direction, you will fall flat on your face. Okay, like I said, just like a broad jump, when you jump, your shin angles, if you're jumping this way, you have to land with those shins here and let momentum carry you into that stick. Okay, just like if you see a basketball player going down he steals the ball, he's driving, he's dribbling down the court full speed. Okay, he is sprinting this way down the court. And he's got to go from having all that horizontal vectored force and change it to vertical vector like that. Okay. If he just goes from here and all of a sudden tries to jump, he's going through the freaking scoreboard. Okay. What does he have to do? He's got to shift his angles. He's got to shift the angles. He's got to work them vertical. So you see him sprinting, his shins are going this way. And then all of a sudden they go like this, right? They're almost reversed. And then he momentumly sits into that stick, jumps, dunks the ball, right? It's the same concept, guys. You have to have that big momentous stick. Okay. Here's a diagonal now, right? So we work a little bit different projection angles here. Okay. So that big stick still comes. Now I'm pushing diagonally out of it. Big stick, out of the drill. Okay. Now here it is, rapid fire no stick. Now this is one of the biggest things, guys, as I started really breaking down and assessing biomechanics. The best movers in the world are a one-time change of direction guy. And what I mean by that is you don't want to be a 1-2 change of direction guy. Okay. As you attack this cone, you know where you're going. It can't be a 2-step process, meaning, oh, I'm starting. Okay. Now it's time to start again. I stop at the cone. Oh, now it's time to start again. It has to be a simultaneous movement of, as I'm decelerating, my shin is already moving in that next direction and accelerating at the same time. It's got to be a 1-step process. It's got to be start, stop. It's got to be all one movement. It can't be, oh, okay, I stopped. That's great. Got this figured out. Now let me start and go the opposite direction. Any efficient movement, any efficient mover is going to be able to do this in a 1-step process. Okay, now we got single leg reactive stick drill. So now there is a coach in front of you. You are sprinting and attacking that coach. Okay, on his clap, you are stopping and sticking. Once again, if these videos are choppy right now, guys, I'm sorry. I'll keep on trying to MC as the best I can. So you're attacking this coach. He claps, and on the reactive stick, you stick it. Okay, and then we can go 45 degrees. So now you're attacking this coach. And when he points a direction, you're going to stick your foot in the ground and cut 45 degrees. So now we're just trying to make this slightly more reactive. We're trying to make it slightly more uncontrollable, just like we talked about on the wall. Okay, so as we go through linear, Accel, Decel, biomechanics, our main coaching cues. Number one is you got to coach that big step. Can't be afraid to coach it. You have to allow momentum to carry you into that stick. Have to. Okay, got to have a low center of gravity. Chest has got to be over your toes. Right? Without those three things, we are not going to decelerate the force that we are creating. We create great force producers. Can we create great force absorbers? And that is the more essential thing when it comes to injury prevention as well. Okay, so the way that works, right? We have compact sticks, we have rapid fire, and then we go reactive. So it goes from most controllable, right? Compact, to a little more uncontrollable, to the most uncontrollable in this phase one before we hit the phase two. And all we're looking at, right, is as I assess guys, is this is what everyone always asks me. They hate this question, they hate this answer. Okay, they say, how long do you go? Right? Well, there's no timeline. I'm not a timeline guy. I'm not a timeline coach. I'm a result-based coach, right? That's what we do here at Buffalo. Is so we look at our guys, but when they can abide and live by these laws of change of direction in the compact sticks, guess what? We're ready for rapid fire. And when we go rapid fire and they can abide by these laws, we're ready for reactive. And then when we get the reactive and they can do that, then we're ready for phase two. And that's how we work. There is no timeline. Could be 2 days, could be 2 months. It just depends on how much time they need to neurally ingrain these movement patterns. Okay, so now focusing more on the lateral Accel, Decel change of direction, okay, and our teaching progression in that, right? Okay, once again, you guys saw this picture, but you look at Jared, and here's the must, right? Center mass is always low. Shins are always pointing the direction he wants to go. You see that every time this kid makes a cut. That's how we coach this, right? So shins are pointing the direction we want to go. Shin angle, that's our steering wheel. Which direction is Jared going right now? He's going this way. These are his steering wheels. It's impossible for him to go this direction right now. It ain't gonna freaking happen, okay? The way his shins are going is the direction he's gonna go, right? Okay, center mass has gotta drop. Can't change direction without it. Gotta drop your center mass. Mainly horizontal force. So understand when and try to listen carefully to this. You still have to push back and down. And I don't mean back this way, back here. I mean back and down, just like you did when you wanna go this direction. I have to produce a ton of force back this way. Jared's got to produce force back this way, where you see these pellets get back that way, back that way. That is what is going to help project force in the correct direction. So our drills, acceleration, deceleration, change of direction. Okay, so just like we did on the linear, we're going to start with compact drills. This is 5-yard shuffle. So I'm going to start in my position. I'm going to shuffle 5 yards and stick. Okay, now what I'm looking for here is same thing. Okay, now this is average at best, right? But that's what I am. I'm an average athlete. I do apologize for that. Okay, so I'm going to look for shin angle. I want this shin to try to match this shin as possible. Center mass has got to be low. That's pretty solid. That's not bad. Okay, but this shin needs to be pointed out slightly. Okay, that's a lot better. I could still load this a little bit out here, okay, but that's better. So we're sticking these positions, and this is where you have to take your time and coach your athletes, because I'm telling you, this will be a train wreck when you do this the first time. You will absolutely be mind blown how many guys' knee is valgused in 6 inches and their knees are damn near touching, okay? And then you might go, man, there's something to that. Maybe we should be doing this, okay? So that's the first thing, is make sure that as you're going through this, you're coaching it, you're teaching it, okay? Now this is rapid fire. So I shuffle, flip right back into it. Okay, now let's see if I pause that how I did, right? So we go through this, shuffle. Okay, not bad. Shins are, my steering wheel are pointing pretty solid direction. My hips are down. Okay, I'm in a pretty good position to change direction here. Getting better at loading that shin. It's a better rep because I have better shins. Crazy how that works, right? Okay, now we just make it a little more unstable by going a sprint to a lateral decel. So now I'm going to be adding speed to the drill, right? I'm going to be able to sprint faster than I can shuffle. So now it's 5-yard sprint into a lateral decel, right? Out of it. Stick it at the end. Okay, now we go shuffle to sprint. This is a Tommy Moffitt special here. This is one of the drills I stole from him back in 2012 down at LSU. Okay, a 5-yard shuffle into a sprint into a stick. Okay, so now I'm higher velocities, right? I'm achieving greater speeds, which means I need to produce greater force when I go to absorb and decelerate. Okay, now it's rapid fire. So I'm shuffling, sprinting, and it's right in, right out, get out. Right? And every time we go through this, what am I doing? I'm assessing the laws. Okay, for the majority of our team, how are their hips? How are their shins? Okay, as we get this from compact to rapid fire to reactive, are things going mayhem and their shins are starting to change positions, or are they able to ingrain these laws in their movement? Okay, so now it's reactive. So now I'm going to attack, and this is Coach Heiss right here. I'm going to attack Coach Heiss, and as I come down here, he's going to point a direction. When he points that direction, I'm going to now go from being completely pushing, like I said, horizontally, right, and have to shift into a lateral push here. So I sprint, my eyes are on him, boom, I got to go. Okay, I'm watching these shins. On the reaction now, what are the shins doing? Okay, so as we go through that progression, remember what your coaching cues are. Low center of gravity. Center of gravity's got to be low. Right? You have to project back and down. Teach your athletes where to project. Don't teach lean, don't teach low, okay? Just teach them to project in the right direction, and everything else will fit where it needs to fit, right? Remember, your shins are your steering wheel. It's absolutely essential. Guys, if you don't believe me, just please open up YouTube, pick up your sport, and go watch the best movers move. Just do that. That's like I said, that's how this was created. That's how this progression was created. That's how this worked in my mind when I really wanted to understand movements. I just went and watched the most proficient movers in the world do it, and I picked up these laws from them. I certainly didn't create these laws. They did. They taught us how to do this, right? So now let's return the favor. But shins, remember, they got to be efficient. They got to be pointing in the right direction, right? And then we have to put substantial force in the ground. We know, that's the one thing I add that for a reason, is I don't want people to leave this being like, oh man, we don't need to do anything in the weight room anymore. Force production is worthless. Okay, all you need to do, if you can project force, you're great. Like, no, you still need to be able to produce a ton of force to be successful in any sport. If you can't do that, you're lost, right? But it's got to be synonymous. They have to go hand in hand. Not only, whatever you can produce, you better be able to project. And if you can, it's wasting. It just is. You're creating an inefficient athlete and you're wasting force. Okay? So yes, it does require a ton of force to decelerate, to absorb, and to accelerate. That is 100% true, right? But projection is just as important, and that is my whole point here. Is you look at your program, how much of it do you spend practicing production? How much of it do you spend practicing projection? How often skewed are those numbers? Just look at it, just assess it, just think about it. Okay. So remember our phase one progression: compound sticks, right? Or compact sticks, sorry, rapid fire, and then reactive, same thing, same timetable. It's not a time, it's not a couple of weeks, it's result based. How do they look during the compact? Do they own the laws? Great, move them. Okay, going into phase two. Okay, now phase two, this is something that I've been talking with my buddy Cam Joss about for a very long time, right? And these are chase games, and I took this slide directly from Cam. So Cam, shout out to you. Thank you for letting me borrow this, more like steal it, but I did tell you I was going to steal it, so I don't think that counts as stealing, okay? So going from there, this is a lot of things. There's a bunch of ways we can do this. We can read, react, and chase, right? We can talk about pattern recognition, but the main thing that I want you guys to think about is as you go into these competitive games, we're getting closer to the game of football. Okay, we're not nearly playing football yet, but we're getting closer, a lot closer than the drills we taught you in phase one or we just went through. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, but the question is now when we go from ingraining those laws, if they're truly ingrained, what's going to happen? I'm going to be able to see them here. So you can't just get to these games, and this is one thing I struggle with sometimes. Is the kids love them. They have so much fun doing them. It becomes a very hectic, competitive environment sometimes, which is what we want. But you can't get so enthralled in that environment that you stop coaching. You have to continue to dissect and analyze biomechanics and look and say, are they still abiding by the laws? Because if not, if it doesn't transfer to that, it is not going to transfer to football. And you're still going to have those guys missing tackles because they're not projecting force in the right direction. They're getting beat to the spot. Okay, so throughout that video is just some ideas. Now, this is probably the main one that we do. Now we spend I'd say probably about a third of the year in each one of these phases. If I had to just give you guys a quick timetable, it's probably about 33% in each one of these, right? But capture the towel has been a big game that our kids love that we play, and there's so much variation you can put to it. So we can play capture the towel in a 5-yard square box, a 10-yard square box, and a 20-yard square box. And sorry I don't have videos for you guys, but obviously this coronavirus thing, I didn't have athletes just laying around to help me demo some things. And my two assistants, Coach Heiss and Coach McNally, would have killed me had I made them go out to the field and play a couple of these games and put them on in front of 1,558 people currently. so they can thank me for this later. All right. But so we can play this, like I said, in a more controlled environment, in a little bit less controlled environment, a higher velocity environment, or the highest velocity, which is that 20-yard square box, which is a big box. Okay. So we can play with 2 athletes, play with 4 athletes, and play with 6 athletes. Really, the 3 main games that we'll play is cat and mouse, right? So that's just one-on-one. I have the towel, you don't. Your job is to try to get the towel from me. Okay, it's not a hand battle, it's a movement battle. So guys can't stiff arm, they can't do any of those. They can use their arms for movement only. And the other guy's trying to get the towel. We'll put, say, 6 seconds on the clock, and it'll be go. We'll start them 3 yards apart from each other. And then it's just, can you get it? The guy who gets the towel wins, the guy who doesn't loses. Okay, or we can play last man standing. We put 4 guys or 6 guys in a box, right? Now you're adding more stimulus. There's more guys in the box. Everybody has a towel. So now not only do I got to worry about my towel and protecting my towel, but I got to worry about the guy to my left and the guy to my right and the 2 guys in front of me. Okay, so now there's more stimulus. We're getting closer to football, if that makes sense, closer to our team sport, right? And then really the last thing we'll do is we'll add obstacles, right? Referees, field goal post, I don't know, right? So we'll put things in there like trash cans. We'll put trash cans just periodically through a 20-yard box. So now you got to watch out for the other 5 guys trying to take your towel. You got to try to take their towel, and you got to watch out for that trash can to your right and 5 yards forward. Okay, so we're just adding stimulus, trying to make this as close to real football as we could possibly get it. Okay, so I just want to give a shout out. I did steal Cam's slide there, so I figured I should at least do this for probably copyright infringements. These are incredible books, guys. And for those of you guys that don't know, Fergus Connolly and Cam, both very brilliant minds. Cam is a very close friend of mine. And he's a guy that has helped me, I want to say, organize my philosophy. We've spent many hours on the phone talking programming, and he's really been a guy I've leaned on heavily to sit there and listen to all my crazy thoughts throughout the years. So Cam, thank you very much for that. But both these books, guys, I absolutely recommend. And if you're looking for more resources on necessarily why to play games, how to play games, and different ideas and ideologies of programming them into your program yearly, these are great resources. I recommend you hop on Amazon and order them right now. Okay, so finally, phase 3. It's what I said, guys. It's 7-on-7. It's captain's practice, right? So for us personally, what we do, right, is I'm going to take the script that I know we're going to start off camp with. I'm going to take all those indie drills that we're going to start for the first 10 periods of practice with, right? And we're going to do those. And that's how we're going to start. So a few things, right? Now it's actually football. I still am watching. I'm still coaching. I got to make sure that those laws are ingrained. I got to make sure that we're still hitting those laws as we go and shift into phase 3. And so we're still out there, and we're looking and we're coaching, right? Those are important things to still be doing. But the best thing about that too, guys, is I think one of the things that contributed most to us not having any soft tissue injuries in camp this past year was the fact that we had repeated those 10 periods of the first 4. Everyone knows the first 4 days of camp are the highest volume of injuries throughout the entire season, right? Well, by us repeating those and them already being so accustomed to those 10 periods, right? They just did it over and over and over and over again. So yes, it helped with us assessing those biomechanics and if they were neurologically ingrained to be able to do those in their live sport. But at the same time, as far as that acute spike that teams normally get going into camp, we didn't really have it because we've been doing it all summer. I think it's wildly valuable, okay? And then on top of that, we had 7-on-7 twice a week. So you see these kind of 2 things stacking on top of each other to really put the whole picture together with that. So as far as the volume that we'll own in summertime, we won't do true agility drills. Okay, any hour or any minute I have with them that we can call agility, it's either captain's practice, which is really indie, or 7-on-7. Okay, so just to review, right? We have our 3 laws, or our 3 phases in our progression. Phase 1 is change of direction fundamentals. Ingrain the laws of changing direction. That is our goal there. We want to try to ingrain those movement patterns and make sure that they are locked in so that when we go to phase 2 and we start the games, we see those transition. We see the laws come with them into that more unpredictable environment, right? And then finally, when we feel like, hey, those laws are being brought over into the more unpredictable environment, let's put them into their sport. Now do we see it in their sport? When we see them playing 7-on-7, when we see them going through indie, are those laws of movement, are they still applicable? Are they still performing those laws? Okay, so in conclusion, guys, and then we'll get to some questions here. I see we got a few up there rolling. Okay, understanding and remembering this, please take this away. If force isn't produced in the correct direction, it's absolutely worthless, okay? It's twofold. Produce project, produce, project. You have got to produce your force and project it in the correct direction, or else all that hard work we're spending with our guys in the weight room, it's for none, right? So make sure not only are your athletes great force producers, but make sure they're great force projectors as well, okay? Have a progression, right? Sexy isn't always better. A lot of this I showed you guys, it wasn't very sexy, and I'm sorry if I disappointed you guys, but to me, simplistic is always how I've operated. I think the mundane, simplistic things in life, when you really hone in on those and own those and master those, that's what's going to project you success, right? So have a progression, and no matter what level you're at, I couldn't disagree more that you could argue that you don't need this. I think every level of an athlete, unless he's just a level 3, a phase 3 mover, he needs to be implementing these in some form or fashion. Okay. And then the biggest mistake, or the biggest takeaway I don't want you guys to take, is that by just doing these drills, you're going to become better movers. Guys, this is tough. You want to talk about attempting to reteach guys these movements and then really truly ingrain them so that when they go to the football field, they actually do them. Okay. I think we've all seen it, right? Where you teach all these beautiful sprint mechanics and then you put a clock on and they go to none, right? Well, they're not ingrained then. So you have to coach. This is something that if you're not a great teacher, I guess don't even try it. Okay. Or if you're not willing to really coach and teach and get your elbows freaking dirty, because this is coaching. Okay. If you want to do this and you really want to implement this in your program, don't just tell me the drills didn't work. Okay. The coach didn't work. You need to go and you need to break your guys down and you need to coach the heck out of them. And if you don't do that, this is no magic pill. This ain't just going to fix things. You got to coach. You got to freaking teach. Okay. And then also just remember, once again, this is probably a whole nother slide or a whole nother, I guess, presentation, but by teaching our athletes to produce and absorb force in a better direction, we can reduce a lot of those non-contact injuries that are just unnecessary, guys. A lot of those, as we know, happens when force is produced or absorbed in the wrong direction or inefficiently, and we're leaking force all over the place. We know that's a thing. So a huge piece of it is that as well. Okay. Guys, I want to take a minute here to once again, for sure, thank, my wife Anna, my newborn Mia. Without them, none of this is possible. Following me around the country and doing this and the support that I have from home is what allows me to do things like this. And anything that I can give to our strength and conditioning community, it's because of what they give me. So I want to make sure I thank them. Okay. My staff here, Coach McNally, Coach Connor McNally, Coach James Heiss, I just want to make sure, they understand how valuable they are to me. Those guys push me to get uncomfortable every single day. They truly live the standard that we set. And these are two incredible coaches, some of the best I've ever been around, some of the best I've seen. Okay. Coach Leipold and our football team, obviously. It's been I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it's been working for this man. One of the best leaders I've ever been around. Okay. And then our kids, I mean, you talk about the kids that we have the opportunity to coach every day, man, you don't even go to work. That ain't what it is. Okay. You get the opportunity to go hang out with these guys and do something for them on a daily basis. Our kids are absolutely incredible. Okay. And then, Drake, you and Ben, man, and Hawk and Dynamics, I'm telling you guys, you guys killed this. And I want, anybody who's out there, and you need to understand one thing, is that this does not happen without them. They took an idea, and without them, guys, I wouldn't have been able to do this, not to this level. Okay. And those guys, they absolutely killed it. So Ben, thank you, man. Thank you so much. Hawk and Dynamics, thank you. And Drake, you did a freaking killer job, man. I know how much work you put in this. So thank you. I appreciate you. Okay. Guys, here's all my contact information, right? There's my email address. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I do my best to try to put some things up. Really, where I do the most of my time with education-wise is all of our staff developments and phone calls. We have a YouTube channel, which we actually just converted to a podcast as well, which is on Spotify and Apple. It's called The Curriculum. It's a great way to keep up with me and kind of what we're doing to develop our staff as well. So, guys, thank you for the opportunity. It's been incredible. And Jay, whatever questions there are, I'm more than happy to answer those now.
All right. Well, Coach, first, I think you're going to be happy to know that your goal was more than doubled. So thank you to everybody in attendance, wherever you are, for continuing along the cause. Coach, one big one that we're seeing a lot of, and selfishly, this was one of the two that I wrote down as well. What are your key checkpoints? And how do you know whether the progression or regression needs to come about?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's such a hard thing, Jay, is that it's fluid, right? It's organic in a certain thing, and sometimes it can even be day to day. Just like we know, you know, anybody who has cleans in their program, you can have guys ripping great cleans on Friday, right? And you come in on Monday and you hit a light complex, and you're like, who is this team? What happened to my good cleaners? So it's definitely organic and it's definitely fluid. And, you know, I'd say probably over the years, obviously my eye has gotten a lot better for it, but that's what it is. It's what I said. It's coaching and it's teaching. If you have to sit there and you have to assess. So what I'm looking at those coaching cues, right? Is that guys, we put them in, are their hips dropping? Are their shin angles where we want them to be? Or do we have inverted shin angles, right? Where one's pointing this way and one's pointing this way, and we lost our beautiful parallel shin angles. Are we extending through the ground? Are we pushing in the right direction? So honestly, it's a coaching thing. It's an eyeball thing most of the time. And even, you know, I was talking to a couple of my former employees, you know, Parker Showers, Luke Rose, Chris Gray, very close friend of mine, Matt Clapp, yesterday, and they asked some really good questions about if we ever go back to phase one. And the answer is yeah. It was just, you know, these are great things that you can implement in your warm up, right? Those compact drills, that's not putting a ton of toll on the body. So you can hit those compact drills. Let's say in summertime before a 7-on-7, we might quick hit those compact drills just to re-ingrain those motor patterns to make sure that we're still hitting them in that simplistic form.
I love that, man. That's awesome. Now, Eric Herman also said, Coach Lee for president. Thought you should probably know that you know people are going to vote for you for office. But I think that this is an important a question too, Coach. People ask this in a bunch of different ways. What are the roles during 7-on-7 for you, other than evaluation? And are you allowed any input into talking with these guys about how they're moving? And then selfishly also, Dave Foreman asked this, and I would actually like to know this too. What are the big guys doing during 7-on-7?
Yeah, so, you know, obviously I understand there's some obviously different restrictions, and obviously so for us, a lot of that is entrusted into our captains, right? Is we go out there, well, you know, if I'm on the field, there can't be any footballs out there. And there's a lot of NCAA rules and regulations on that as well. So with our team techs, our captains practices, there are no footballs out there. So we obviously get creative with the things that we're doing. So that's really when I can assess it the most. As far as 7-on-7, it's just we go, we warm them up, and then we leave, you know, which is NCAA rules there. So a lot of the 7-on-7 assessments we can't necessarily do, but the nice thing is our last phase of summer, really when we get into 7-on-7s, our conditioning all becomes position specific. So with that conditioning, a receiver is paired up with a DB, right? And I'll call a route. Hey, you're running a dig right. Okay, so I get to sit there and just assess those drills and assess those mechanics that entire time. So that's really when I make up some ground, because we can't be out there for 7-on-7s. And what was the other question there? You're still muted there, Jay.
What are the big guys doing?
Yeah, what are the big guys doing?
Yeah, so big guys are still, so during captain's practice, they're still on Indy, right? So they have all their Indy drills that they're doing, which is mimicking the first 9-10 periods of what camp or what camp would be for their Indy periods. And then during 7-on-7, they're over and they're doing their one-on-ones, and they're doing their drills as well for that.
Awesome. So then another one that we saw quite a few of, how would this cross into multiple sports, say like a soccer athlete or a lacrosse player?
Yeah, and that's where, you know, Jay is once again, those aren't my sports or necessarily what I've worked with. So I guess you could take it with a grain of salt, but the laws are the laws, right, Jay? I mean, that's where I'm saying those laws don't change, and it doesn't matter what now maybe how they break the rules or they kind of use those laws to bend them and work in their sport. Maybe that differs slightly, right? But those laws don't change. I don't care what sport you play. If you're sprinting forward and you don't drop your center of mass, you're falling on your face. You know, I don't care what sport you're playing. If you're sprinting this way and you want to go back this direction, if your shins are still pointing that way when you want to go that way, it ain't happening. So the laws don't change. Now, could you specify this and make your own 3 phases for soccer and for those things? Yeah, absolutely. I think the games are valuable for anybody. I don't think the games are football specific. I don't think capture the towel is football specific. It's just, what is your phase 3, right? And to my knowledge of soccer, they have captain's practice. They have those same things. So it's still that concept, Jay, of that progression of going from the most controllable to the most uncontrollable. I'm going to put them in a controlled environment. Can you ingrain those movement patterns? And then do you still have them as you get less and less in a controlled fashion?
Fantastic, dude. Matt, I can't thank you enough, man. This presentation was absolutely awesome. This was great. Thank you, bud.
No, I appreciate you guys, and hearing that we dominated that $1,000 goal, guys, man, that's awesome. So don't forget the cause, guys. You know, speakers, you got a really freaking good one coming up, man. I'm fired up, and I'm gonna get another cup of coffee here for Coach McKeefer. Can't wait for you. So Jay, thank you, man. Awesome job. Appreciate you being out here and helping us out. Everybody watching, please enjoy the next day, the next night, the next weekend, man. This is incredible. Thank you. I'm so blessed for you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what, Matt, and a big thanks to you for all you've done to put this together.
Been a pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure. Good luck, Coach. Go dominate, baby.
So our next talk, guys, our second